I was a dishwasher 5 weeks ago, Chester, and I truly enjoyed that. I can remember a lot of things that failed. We were saying A, but they understood C all this while. It was almost like we're speaking a different language from the rest.
What's the toughest part of running your day-to-day business?
It's the thing that I love the most, but also it's the most challenging, which is
Hi everyone! Welcome back to the Behind the Counter. I'm Chester, your host, and super excited ako to have you guys back here in our podcast. Now, if passionate ka about coffee and you're curious about what it takes to run a successful F&B business, then ito na ang episode for you. We're hanging out with Sir Andre Chanco, one of the brilliant minds behind Yardstick Coffee. Now, kung na-try mo na din ang kape nila, you know that they're serious about coffee. Yes po. But what you might not know is their incredible journey they've been through from starting as a B2B company, supplying sa mga restaurants, cafes, and hotels, to becoming a brand that is reshaping the coffee culture here in the metro. So all the way from Singapore, let's welcome Sir Andre Chanco. Sir, kamusta po?
Thanks, Chester. What an intro. What an intro.
Thank you, sir. We should start it lively, kaya don't worry, we will also end it lively din naman.
I wish this was in person, but I think the video call works.
All right. Well, we're hoping, sir, na ma-meet din kayo in person to talk more about Yardstick Coffee. So, sir, since all the way from Singapore, hindi ba dyan maulan ngayon? Kasi dito, medyo cloudy, medyo may bagyo na naman. Sa inyo po ba, sir?
Yeah, I think Singapore's quite lucky to be protected by countries around it. So it's not as rainy as Manila.
All right. So, before we get into the details, Sir Andre, mag-throwback muna tayo. I'm just curious, when did your love of coffee start, sir?
Oh, I think that's always a great starting question. I think early back, I guess it's my grandfather feeding me kind of like teaspoons of instant coffee, right? Kind of like as a kid. But I think in the more recent years, it's really more, I would normally work in cafes and then therefore kind of the whole lifestyle of not being in an office and having an espresso or an iced Americano in a cafe. Yeah, I think that's where it kind of started.
Alright, at least yun sa inyo, sir, parang pinagmulan or sabihin natin may with a touch of culture kasi other people like me, I started my love of coffee na nag-BPO na ako. So, syempre, for it to keep me awake, di ba? So, yun.
There's nothing wrong with that, Cesar. I think all of us have kind of different entry points, right? And maybe even for me, I'm not sure if it was the love for the beverage or the love for the lifestyle, right? And that's where it's kind of blurry.
All right. But ang pinaka-importante this, sir, is we're all united by coffee. Di ba?
Exactly.
Now, sir, ang follow-up question ko with you for that is, sir, did you imagine growing up to be a business owner? Na-imagine mo ba sarili mo na, paglaki ko, business owner ako, or do you have a different in mind?
Yeah, I mean, if I look back and try to remember what I would aspire to be, I think, okay, maybe if it was not a basketball player, it would have been a business. It would have been a business owner. I think just I think as a young child, it's either seeing my mom run her own business or kind of like figuring things out myself. I think those were kind of the kickstarter to my entrepreneurial journey.
I know that our listeners today are very eager to hear about your story. So, what's the vision when you first launched Yardstick Coffee, Sir Andre? How did it all begin?
Cheshire, the trick is it's all in the name, right? And we named our company Yardstick from day one, and Yardstick really means to set the benchmark or to set the standard in whatever way, right? And I think the vision from day one was to elevate the coffee industry and the coffee drinking population of the Philippines, and hence the name Yardstick.
Did you ever imagine that it would grow into what it is today for Yardstick Coffee?
I mean, it's easier to see things on hindsight, obviously. The thing is, every day is different. And with the pandemic, I'm sure that threw a lot of people off. But I think what we've been doing in the past 4 to 5 years is, apart from setting and establishing the vision and communicating that throughout the company. I think something that we've been working on for the past 5 years is having kind of this 10-year picture, right? And then every quarter we meet and we remind ourselves what the 10-year picture is. And we're halfway there from the time we've started to do it. And what's fascinating, Chester, is I think we're not only are we achieving what we wrote down, we're also surpassing it, right? So I think once with that North Star or picture of what the next 5 years looks like, I think it helps anyone get to where they want to be.
Well, it's good to have in a company na talagang may vision kayo for a long term. Hindi lang yung basta mag-business tayo, let's open and then run things and extra income. But with you, it's totally different, sir. Kasi parang nakikita ko with you and your vision to the company, talagang pangmatagalan na to for generations to come na matitikman nila ang Yardstick Coffee.
I think where people go to business in different reasons, and some people, yeah, as you said, additional income is good. But some people want to leave an impact. Some people want to do good. And I think every business owner or entrepreneur is slightly different.
Okay, now, Yardstick Coffee started as a B2B company, roasting coffee and supplying it to other businesses. How was that experience, sir?
It was in 2013, super challenging in a way that it was almost like we're speaking a different language from the rest, in the sense that, number one, the industry, not in the Philippines, but in general, is so used to kind of like low cost coffee. The industry was used to maybe a different way of coffee preparation. So here we are in 2013, kind of like with the most expensive coffee equipment in the world and roasting coffee. So it's something that we had to learn how to communicate, and it was also something that people had to learn how to understand, right? Because you were saying A, but they understood C all this while. Yeah, I think it's that kind of like, it was a very young landscape. Therefore, we thought that there was so much opportunity for us.
What is it like yung transitioning from a primarily B2B company to balancing both B2B and now going to direct consumer? Are there any like challenges you face, and how did you overcome it, Sir Andre, with you and your partners?
I think there are internal, and we're still going through that transition, right? Like transition does not happen overnight. I think internal changes in structure, I think that's probably the number one challenge. Our muscles are so used to working out a certain way, right? And then in the past 2 or 3 years, we're like, hey, instead of running, let's try to swim. And then, so therefore we're learning a new set of skills. We're structuring things differently, and we're also building systems for a different type of business. So that's one challenge, kind of like, kind of the internal back end of the company. And then I think something that's maybe a bit more at an industry level is, and we deal with this every day, and it's more of a mindset thing, is our customers are also our competitors, if you think about it, right? So if you open a cafe, Chester, you might buy equipment and coffee from us, but at the same time, 3 blocks down, there might be a Yardstick cafe, right? So in a way, our customers are also our competitors, but we removed that thinking 10 years ago, where I think we understand that our place here in the industry is to try and elevate it, and whether it's supplying other cafes or doing our own thing, as long as we're trying our best to elevate the entire thing, then we should be okay.
All right. Just a clarification, sir. Meron ka bang na-experience with your journey before when you're starting up that hindi naman to mag-work, yung tipong, hindi, you're doomed to fail? How did you overcome yung ganong like toxic na culture from before, sir?
It's everyday, Chester. I think as a as a business owner, and there's 3 of us partners running this, and the company's over 100 employees now. But I think the self-doubt, not only is it a personality trait, but it is also what fires us to do better. So yes, I think insecurity or self-doubt is part of it. And for us, we just channel it as a
motivation or strength, right? Right. Totoo naman. So instead of you succumb to that negative emotion, is you fuel that to your emotion to be better. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Now, you and your co-founders could have chosen to expand in other countries. Sabi, katulad nga kayo, sir, you're from Singapore, but you still decided to mark your way here in the Philippines. So what motivated you and your co-founders to that decision? How did you see Yardstick contributing to the local coffee culture and scene?
I think we could have made a dent or made an impact in wherever we choose to operate. But I think what separates good from great or successful companies is also timing or luck. And looking at the Singapore landscape in 2013, it was quite competitive. And also, I think hospitality and food and beverage for industry is a very difficult industry, given that it's, overheads are very high. But then I guess in places like the Philippines or even Thailand or Jakarta, the startup costs are a lot easier and because are a lot lower. And because it's a lot lower, we were a lot more courageous to take a risk and, make a bet and make a difference. So therefore the Philippines.
Philippines. So is there like a part of culture na just going back to the roots, or you would like to make an impact here sa Philippines since was that, sirs, yun, diba? Filipino pride, kumbaga.
I wanted to correct you earlier when you said I'm from Singapore, but I'm proudly Filipino. And yeah, I think that's I mean, obviously going back to roots is number one. But also I think what makes Philippines special is the Philippines is also a coffee producing country, right? And whereas in Singapore, Hong Kong, like very good cosmopolitan cities or countries, but coffee is always imported. But at least in the Philippines, coffee is grown and harvested. So therefore, it could come full circle, right? I think the impact could come full circle.
All right. And just to give a trivia for everybody, mostly Southeast Asia is more of a tea-loving country or tea-loving region. And really, Philippines is kind of more on into coffee para sa mga viewers out there. So that's a trivia that we can provide for you for today. All right. Now, sir, Yardstick Coffee has a thing called flavor bar. Tama po ba? Can you tell about our listeners more about it?
You guys have done your research. Amazing. Yeah, I think the flavor bar. So at the moment, I think we are about 8 or 9 shops now. Chester? Sorry, I mean more does not mean better, but given that there's more shops, our thinking is, okay, 8 or 9 shops is not a lot, but we're forcing ourselves to think smaller, right? Because sometimes when you have more shops, you might lose the intimacy or like that whole independent cafe feel. And the flavor bar really is a result of why Kevin, Jessica, and myself are in coffee, where sometime in the past 15 years, we were blown away by a cup of coffee in a small cafe somewhere in the world, right? And that moment is what led us here today. So therefore, the flavor bar really is us trying to recreate that moment for people who make a reservation. And it's a 4-seater reservation setup where it's a bit more of an intimate and personal interaction between the people and our baristas.
Since we're talking about flavor bar na rin po, how does the flavor bar help in creating yung tinatawag nating memorable wow X factor? For first-time visitors, can you walk through us what customers might experience once they decided na mag-book for a reservation for flavor bar?
That's a great question, but at the same time, it's what makes the flavor bar special in a way that it's a secret, Chester. Like, I think, meaning so much of it is a surprise, but essentially what it does is we have a seasonal menu on the flavor bar that's different from buying over the counter. And for every season, we'll have a theme. And the theme that we're exploring at the moment is Filipino cacao or Filipino chocolate and coffee. So that's a theme that we're exploring in the flavor bar. And apart from the theme and the menu that we serve from it, after the entire experience, you're also able to order additional flavor bar exclusive drinks. And that's also seasonal, right? But we only present the menu for those that deserve.
Di ba? Sa kwento pa lang ni Sir Andre, for our viewers, listeners out there, totoo nga namang ano kaya ang meron sa flavor bar. So kapag gusto nyo talaga matry, ma-experience, why not book now for that particular reservation for flavor bar? I might be the one taking the sample for that one na rin as well. Right. Now, Andre, we've covered a lot about your journey so far. Now, I want to chat about Yardstick's coffee brand. Now, in a crowded coffee scene here in the Philippines, how did you make Yardstick coffee brand stand out from the rest? So, sabi mo nga, ang dami nyo ng competition. So, ang dami ng nagbibenta ng coffee. What makes you stand out? Or what makes Yardstick stand out?
That question is also more suitable for customers to say, because like, for example, like we might think that we are different in a certain way, but our customers might think otherwise, right? But I think for us, it's more, it's a constant willingness to kind of innovate and try different things. And we throw many things up on the ceiling and not many things stick. And because maybe we're trying a lot of things. For those that work, people appreciate it. And number two, I think we're also quite lucky that we started in 2013, right? Like starting a coffee shop today is very different from starting it in 2013 and 2005 and 1998. I think timing is key. And also, like Chester, if you look at if you visit different websites of different coffee roasters, and then you go to their about page or the philosophy or the about us, most coffee shops or coffee roasters, they kind of sound the same, right? It's quite repetitive. Like we all have the same values of quality, transparency, and traceability. So for Yardstick, it's more of, yes, kind of that's the foundation of why we're in this. I guess, how do we translate it? So I think that's number 3, being able to translate the message differently.
Sa mga hindi pa nakakaalam dyan, alam nyo ba that si Yardstick Coffee has a strong presence on social media? You guys have 51,000 followers. So if you're going to subscribe, malay mo, ikaw na yung pang 51,001 sa Instagram. Alright? Yun, Instagram pa lamang yun, ha? And for other, baka naman follow na rin si StoreHub, di ba? So, ano ang content strategy po nila, and what's your secret to keeping your audience engaged?
I think since you used Instagram as a example, Chester, I don't think Instagram has a direct impact to business, or I don't think it's a high correlation. Maybe it's a medium correlation, right? But there are successful businesses out there which have low follower count, and that's perfectly fine. I think for us, as kind of the follower count increased, it was really more of trying to understand and realize that different people join us in the journey at different points in time, right? So for example, your listeners might be hearing about Yardstick for the first time in this podcast, right? Some of our customers might hear about us through a store, or some might through our website or through our Instagram. But the more the Instagram followers grew, we realized that we had to communicate to our customers at different stages of their journey, right? So that's why we have an Instagram account, we have our stores, we have a Telegram channel, we have a very strong EDM database, and as the customer experiences the brand, we had to learn that different channels have different advantages and disadvantages, and we just had to funnel we had to funnel our customers through that journey across the different channels, right? And I think at the moment we see the Instagram more like a billboard. And if you're driving down EDSA, the billboard's there. But then when you get home and you open your email and you receive a newsletter from a brand that you love, it's like it requires very different attention spans, right? So for us, kind of knowing what to say, when to say, and where to say is very important.
All right. So that's one tip from Sir Andre Chanco. Now, you said there are a lot of channels and napansin ko, sir, that na-notice ko din na meron kayong blog and it really highlights the storytelling aspect of your brand. Now, how do you decide which stories to share and how does the storytelling play into your overall brand strategy po?
I think over the years we chose kind of like 4 segments to always address or communicate with. So I think the industry, the coffee geeks, our cafe customers, and kind of the general coffee drinking population. And with these 4 customer profiles, we decided to say, hey, how do we engage these 4 throughout the year? And I think similar to what I said earlier about the billboard in EDSA, I think when someone reads a blog or a long format piece of content, they have more time and it's a bit more intentional, right? So I think whenever we choose to feature a story or a person on the blog, it's really more about brand building and sharing our values through a content that we might be sharing, right? So in the same way that you guys have this podcast series where you're interviewing small business owners, I think and then your listeners eventually are also probably small to medium-sized business owners. So it's the same thing.
All right. And with that, sir, have you ever like one particular, let's say, experience with advertising, with marketing that actually worked for you? Now you can share with our listeners and viewers out there.
Ooh, that work.
That worked, yes.
It's an interesting question because I can remember a lot of things that failed, but maybe something that worked would be so before launching it, we did like a survey with 1,000 of our customers, and then when we did that survey, we realized kind of the demographic of our customers or our Instagram followers, and then we also learned that what's important to this set of customers. And based on this survey, which we conducted, I think during COVID, 2021, 2022, we developed a series of products and a messaging campaign to share what we learned. And we called it kind of like the coffee person campaign, where we figured that it, like yourself and myself, like everyone is a coffee person, right? And so that's a very relatable persona. And with that, we launched kind of a series of content and merchandise to gain new eyeballs. And I think that's a successful thing where some people try to change their product offering. Some people try to expand the product offering. I think for us, we're a coffee company, but for us to sell a bag or something that is about this coffee person, I think it's still in line with what we do, but also it resonates with the end customer.
All right. Now, syempre, sir, meron ka na yung nag-work. Is there like a funny story naman if, let's say, na nag-fail or yung in top of your mind that you made some marketing and then it failed? Meron ka bang kwento na ganun, sir?
I think there's like small businesses here and there, but when we first started, a good example was because we were not a cafe, right? And because we were not a cafe and we're more of a B2B company, and whatever we built was our showroom. So therefore, when we built it, we didn't build it to look like a cafe. We built it to look like an office or a showroom or a warehouse, whatever. So there was one time I was standing outside the shop, and then someone walked past, and then she said, "Oh, look, there's a new furniture shop that opened." So yeah, but that's just like one of many. But it's more of like sometimes we're so in our own world that all these small mistakes happen.
Well, ang pinaka-importante naman, sir, is we learn from all of our mistakes, and then you improve. Now, start especially for improvement, sir, is that the design of your shops to the way you communicate online. Yardstick Coffee has a very distinct identity. How do you ensure consistency, sir, across all of your touchpoints?
From a shop's perspective, if you look at all the yardstick shops, physical stores, Chester, they all look very different. And even if they all look very different, we have kind of like three cornerstone philosophies that drive every space, right? Number one is to encapsulate, right? To be able to encapsulate what we do as a company and our vision. So from a product offering and design perspective, it has to encapsulate what we do as a company. Next one is it also has to allow customers to escape, right? I think the idea of being transported to a different place is quite powerful, even if it's just having your morning coffee. So I think if you are able to visit our space and escape for a bit, I think we've done our job. And then the last one, Chester, is to be able to elevate, right? And that's in line with the company name of Yardstick, where in every shop that we build, how are we doing ourselves better compared to the previous shop? And I think that's what we do to remain consistent from shop to shop, but across the different touch points, Chester, I think it's so much of it is really like the people that we hire and then the culture that we're trying to build.
Just to share to you then, Sir Andrea, I've been to most of your shops. I've been to here in Legazpi, malapit lamang. Then I've been to IKEA, and I've been to SM Aura. Definitely, totoo naman po, I can attest to that the shop is very different to each other. And, well, even though they're different, sabi mo kanina, you're going to be transported to another world na iba yung feel for every location. Now, sir, with that one is, paano ninyo dinecide yung look and feel for each location? I'm just curious, what's the design process for you be like?
We don't fit a design and a concept to a space or a site or a location. And the reason for that is a good example is I might be a beachside concept in Boracay, for example, right? And imagine we're serving cafe, food, and coffee in Boracay. And then we decided to open in a mall in Manila. Whatever we decide to design in Boracay will not complement the setting of a mall, right? So whenever we, similar to how we have that kind of like strategy when building a site, when it comes to design, we have to make sure that number one, it fits the operations that the mall or that the space allows us for, right? So designing a small space and making it efficient is very different from designing a space 10 times larger. And then the last one is contextually, we need to understand where the space actually is, right? If this space is in a residential neighborhood, it's slower paced, that's going to impact how we design the space. If this location is in an airport, Terminal 1, 2, or 3, again, contextually, the behavior of people wanting a coffee in an airport is very different when they are out on a weekend run.
Correct.
Yeah. So it's very much contextual. It's contextually that decides the design of it.
All right. So, kasi, di ba, sir, ibang shops is you take, or to your shop, you take into that consideration. Kasi, syempre, if, let's say, here in Legazpi, it's more chill, it's more very comfy, like dun sa SM Aura, which is very fast-moving. Tama po ba yun, sir? Now, I heard that your latest store at SM Aura was inspired by Kanye West concert. Now, can you tell us more about that and how you would come up with such creative design concept para sa store po nila sa SM Aura, sir?
Great question, Seth. And yes, it's a Kanye West inspired store in a way that he has a concert where he's on an elevated platform and the audience is underneath and it's very dramatic lighting. And that really drove the inspiration for the space, because whenever you watch a movie in a cinema, Chester, so much of our attention is on the screen, right? And the way they design movie theaters makes us more engaged with the cinema. And so for our SM Aura space, similar to my statement earlier about designing a space based on context where people who want to go to a cinema, they're rushing with time, right? Because they want to start this movie on time. So we designed it to be fast paced, but even though it's fast paced, we designed the space so that it transports you to a different world, and it's almost like a cinema within a cinema. And yeah, so much of it was inspired by the Kanye West concert.
As we all know, that the coffee scene is very much crowded, not just here in the Philippines, but also globally. Now, how do you balance taking inspiration from other places while creating something that's uniquely Yardstick Coffee? Sir Andre.
Well, I think with the Kanye West example, with the Kanye West concert as an example, I think so much of what we do as a company is not based on historically how the coffee industry has been performing, right? I think so much of what we do is inspired by podcasts like this, or like reading a book on architecture, or like attending a talk by a CEO of a tech startup, right? So much of what we do is learnings from different people from various industries who have done it successfully, right? Because it's very easy to kind of get inspired by other food and beverage peers, but we're all in this together, and the way to differentiate and be successful is to look at various industries where we can learn a lesson or two.
Now, just to give everybody an idea, no, here at StoreHub, every day I get to chat, not just chat, I just also talk to business owners like you and get a peek into their world, what drives them, their challenges, their wins, their needs, their requirements. But one thing I'm always curious about is how they keep everything running smoothly. So now, let's dive into how you handle your day-to-day operations at Yardstick Coffee, Sir Andre. All right? Now, Yardstick Coffee has multiple stores. Sabi mo nga, nasa 8 to 9 stores at nai-imagine ko kung gaano siya kahirap i-manage. So, there's 8 different stores. So, what's your secret in keeping everything running smoothly? Ngayon, syempre, our listeners are very curious about how you do it, sir.
Oh, great question. I think it's a unique combination of people and systems, and maybe leaving 20% to unexpected and expecting unexpected scenarios. I think that the people part of it is quite straightforward, hiring the best people who have done this successfully many times, and making sure that the culture is kept intact. From a systems perspective, it's having processes and systems in place, but also having the right tech stack, right? Like in our case, StoreHub is one of those technologies that we use to ensure that our operations are always smooth running. Communication wise, we are on Slack. We have invested in a ERP and a CRM system on the back end. Yeah, so I think it's a combination of like people and systems, but in what we do, there's always that room where the unexpected happens. So knowing that every day is different keeps us agile.
What's the toughest part of running your day-to-day business? Is there like a part na sabihin natin na reporting dyan ako mahina? Or is there like a time na, ay nako, pagdating na ng senda na ng reporting from managers, doon ka nahihirapan. So, for you, sir, what's your toughest part of running your business day-to-day?
So Tester, I listened to your previous podcasts prior to this, and I guess it's the same question. It's the same answer. It's the same answer as Lance in a way that it's the thing that I love the most, but also it's the most challenging, which is the people part of it. It's I love it because it's what keeps every day different, and we're such a high touch business. It's challenging because and people, not only in our own shops, not only customers, but suppliers as well. Just because there's just too many variables, and that's why we make sure that we're backed up with systems and a tech stack that complements the people part of it, which is challenging.
Before we go on this, thank you for checking my podcast, nakita nyo na yung evolution ko from having a hair to none, and malay mo, ano ulit tayo next year, di ba? Magmahaba ulit ng buhok. Makikita naman natin that your stick has grown significantly through the years. So, what is the change like for you and your co-founders, yung mga nasa top management, sir? How did it feel like, or any particular feelings that you've seen through the years with your current change?
I think we're still very hands-on in a way that I was a dishwasher 5 weeks ago, Chester, and I truly enjoyed that. But I think the challenge is knowing how to let go, right? And in knowing how to let go, there's a few things that has to happen. Number one, you have to have a very strong middle to upper management, right? So we've been hiring people who are a lot older and more experienced than us. With letting go, we also had to balance that out with data. So every week we have a scorecard that we review, and all these KPIs that we review so that we have a good pulse on the business. Yeah, and I think the last challenge is, as we grow, how do we make sure that the culture is still intact, right? I think that's currently a working challenge that we have.
And I'm very curious to know, Sir Andre, what are the core values you make sure to instill in your team? So, how do these values play out in a day-to-day sa Yardstick Coffee?
Our core values, Chester, are super easy to understand for us because they are spelled like cafe. So like customer centric, always on fire. F is focused, and then E is Einstein approach, or like out of the box thinking, right? So customer centric, always on fire, focused, and Einstein thinking. And we use these 4 core values to hire people, evaluate people, and whenever there is a roadblock or a problem, we always fall back on the core values so that we don't regret whatever the decision we make.
I can very much see, sir, that you value your employees very well. But how do you use this employee feedback to shape your workplace? Are there any stories about a piece of feedback that led major changes for Yardstick Coffee?
Yeah, I mean, our HR process is improving, and we now have kind of evaluation processes in place. Something that needs to be maybe put in place with more of a 360 feedback. But I think something that of most recent was because the company is multifaceted, right? So we have baristas, we have salespeople, we have technicians, we have accountants, we have HR people. The beauty in that is you might start out as a barista role, but you might get put to a different. You can elevate your career by maybe eventually being in sales or accounting or HR. I think one of the mistakes that we did in the past was we prematurely promoted someone to a role that she was not capable of, right? And because she was not capable of it, even though we thought she deserved it, that function suffered. And to us, that was kind of like a wake up call where I think our intention was good. But now whenever we put people in a particular seat, it's a mix of 3 things. GWC, do they get it? Do they want it? And are they capable of it, right? And this person got it. I think she wanted it, but then she did not have the right skill sets to be capable. So now we're quite stringent. We're quite stringent in how we hire and how we put people in the right seats.
Well, to think about it, sir, is there is growth on your company. Ay naman yung usually na hinahanap ng mga employees. There will be growth, and kumbaga, there is a way for them to be elevated or grow, to change to a different. And thank you for giving that chance. Well, unfortunately for that person, hindi lang siya, medyo kinulang lang siya, but still, di ba? Nag-give natin siya ng chance. Alright. Now, for you naman, sir, I just have a question for you personally. What are some of the biggest leadership lessons you have picked up along the way, or you learned your time to the F&B industry as a person?
Oh, I think it's always a balance of data and gut feeling. It cannot be 100% data. It cannot be 100% gut feeling. Number 2 is hire people that are smarter than you. Like we realized even early on that we can't do this by ourselves. And the last one is I think we're too busy communicating to our customers, but we don't realize that our first customers are actually our employees. So communicate to your employees as much as you can.
Right. Now, speaking about your first customers, which is your employees, then what are the strategies that that actually work best for you through the years, sir?
I mean, this is the people part of the business is something that I'm spending a lot of time with at the moment, just because I think 2 years ago we were 50 people, and then last year we were 100. So it's quite fast. Something that has worked is we try to hire for attitude and not technical ability. I think technical ability can be learned, but attitude is a bit more harder to spot and observe. I think that's number one. I think number two is we're also trying to identify role models, right? And celebrate and champion these people within the company. So whether it's employee of the month or like our core value awards, whenever we recognize and reward and champion people who live and breathe the core values, it gives a very good example to their peers. Yeah, I think that's it. It's like really hiring for attitude. You know?
All right. Now, having a follow-up question on that one, sir. If we're going to go back, let's say 2013, what is one advice that you would give your past self na that can help you to grow, probably would change the entirety of your business now?
I think the advice that I would give myself 10 years ago is to not always strive for perfection and to fail and to learn, because I'm such a micromanager and I always make sure that everything's perfect, but sometimes it delays, right? And in our industry where time is of an essence, it's very dynamic. Every second, every day matters. Therefore, I would rather try things, and if it doesn't work, then we move on to the next one. Yeah, I think that's probably what I would have told myself.
Well, at least lessons are learned, and yun, with your part, sir, is you're actually applying it onto your day-to-day operations now. I just would like to ask lang din naman that what are some key things that you focus on now, aside, sir, from hiring or getting new people, whether it's customer service, store design, or food quality, to make sure that your customer has an unforgettable experience with Yardstick Coffee?
I think what I'm trying to focus on at the moment, Chester, is elevating the people around me and to make sure that they are equipped to do their job 200% to the best of their ability, right? Because we can't be in every store every second, and our team works remotely, and the only way to make it work is if everyone is capable to do their job well.
All right. And have you tried any strategies that didn't quite go as planned? And ano po yung na-learn nila from that experience?
I think sometimes whenever you go into partnership or you collaborate with people, it's always good to make sure that it's aligned and then the values are the same. Because whenever you go into partnership or whenever you collaborate for a project, so one party will always expect something from the other and vice versa. It's like a marriage or a relationship. So therefore, I think that has to be communicated upfront. So we've had collaborations or partnerships in the past that maybe didn't do so well, but only because the expectations were not set at the beginning.
We really need to actually go ahead and set up, like, say, timelines or whatever. So dapat within that partnership, you set boundaries na agad. You set, kumbaga sa you know what you need to do, kumbaga, para either we set kasi pag wala yun, is either we set the expectation too high or we set the expectation too low. Right? Yan, sa mga listeners natin out there, yan, one of the tips from Sir Andre. Now, here, we'll go ahead and move on to our favorite part of the segment, which is a segment called Rapid Fire Questions. Sir, familiar ka ba sa Rapid Fire Questions?
Yes, because I watched your previous podcast.
And yun, I already dressed the part and I already looked the part. So, kaibigan, usap tayo. Alright, so basically, I'll ask a question and you have to answer the first thing that comes to your mind as fast as you can. Alright, So, Sir Andre, are we ready na po?
All right.
Alright. So, espresso or pour over?
Espresso.
Hot or iced coffee?
Iced.
Morning coffee or late night brew?
Morning.
Minimalist or maximalist design?
Minimalist.
Single origin or blended beans?
Single origin.
Cappuccino or flat white?
Flat white.
Light roast or dark roast?
Light roast.
How do you take your coffee?
Black.
What's the first thing you do when you arrive at the store?
Fix the mess. Pick up trash on the floor.
Yun lang. Alright. If you were the coffee business, what would you be doing right now?
An aspiring film director or maybe an architect. Maybe.
What's the best advice you ever received?
Don't start your own business.
If you have a coffee with any person, with any entrepreneur, dead or alive, who would it be?
Steve Jobs.
Okay. Favorite coffee shop beside Yardstick, boss?
Market Lane Coffee, Melbourne.
Good choice. Good choice. Most underrated Yardstick coffee menu item?
The Yard Shake.
Favorite coffee blend at Yardstick?
Wildflower.
What's one of the things you've learned from running your own startup that you apply at Yardstick today?
Find the right partner.
What's the one trend in the coffee industry that excites you?
The use of technology in cafes.
And what's one trend in coffee industry that you're tired of?
Too much sugar in a coffee cup.
So, well, very much curious ako dun sa underrated Yardstick coffee menu. So later, I'll go to that one. We'll try that out, sir. Thank you for that. Now, we're nearing the end of our podcast, but I can't let you go without asking a few final questions. What's the next for Yardstick Coffee?
Yeah, I think now we're at 10. I think the next one is really fixing the back end. That's number one. Number two is investing in the right people and equipment for scale. Number three is continuing to act small and behave small in whatever that means.
Okay, so good advice. Thank you. In our last episode, si Sir John Rodriguez of The Weekend asked this question: how do you establish your company culture and how does it affect your growth of your business?
That's such a great question. And thankfully, I've eaten at his restaurant. So very relevant because we're experiencing it at the moment. And it's cool that I watched your previous episode, but I also have been to the restaurant. I think for any hospitality industry, I think culture is derived by the founders or the owners. So for Kevin, Jessica, and I were all very hands-on in the business. And I think that's how kind of the culture initially permeates through the company. But Chef's question is very relevant because as the company becomes bigger or grows, it's very challenging to keep the culture intact or the culture will change, right? And I have this current hypothesis that this culture or DNA is made up of three different things, which is number one is employee recognition and reward. And then the second thing is employee growth and continuous learning. And the last one is employee kind of like alignment to vision and communication, right? And it's in these three things that I feel that if any company is able to solve, then as they scale or grow and the culture should scale with it and become even better.
Within yung mentioned earlier, sir, very much impressed ako dun sa values, yung cafe pa lang, but may meaning pala yun. So, very much impressed po ako dun. A simple word na cafe, you bring meaning to it. And kumbaga, it's very, sabi nga, simplistic for every employees to understand that one. So, thank you. Now, ikaw naman, sir, ang makakapagtanong at sabihin natin to give you the chance para pahirapan ang ating magiging next na sasalang sa behind the scenes natin or behind the counter. Now, what question would you like to ask our next guest?
I would want to know how you balance work and life as a business owner.
Pero ikaw, sir, what do you do? How do you balance it for you first?
Not for me. I've accepted that I've integrated it. So it's work never stops, and it's really more of this trying to navigate and prioritize and set aside time.
Okay, so and that's a wrap, everybody. Thank you so much, Sir Andre, for joining us and giving us a peek behind the scenes at Yardstick Coffee. Thank you very much, sir, for taking your time to be with us. And we really appreciate it, and more power to your company.
Thanks, Chester. And when I'm back in Manila, I'm happily will host and organize flavor bar session for you and your team.
Thank you, sir. Looking very much looking forward to it. And probably when you're back here, but at least we can have just a casual talk for this one, because I would really enjoy talking to you, sir. Thank you very much for that one.
Thanks, Chester. Appreciate it.